From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. This is Dateline Malacañang in review. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday underscored his administration's resolve to ensure that every peso of public money truly benefits Filipinos, warning that wastage, inefficiency, and corruption in government spending will not be tolerated. Speaking at the Philippine Development Forum, or PDF 2025 in Mandaluyong City, the President said the national budget is both a moral and economic compass that must always point toward improving the lives of citizens. President Marcos's remarks come amid his continuing campaign against entrenched corruption in public works, particularly in flood control projects. The chief executive highlighted education as the government's top investment, with the Department of Education, or DepEd, receiving the largest allocation in the proposed 2026 national budget. President Marcos Jr. said classrooms, teacher training, and school feeding programs are essential seeds towards real, lasting progress. The President also announced reforms to streamline the use of Official Development Assistance, or ODA, including revised guidelines for the Investment Coordination Committee and measures to cut bureaucratic delays. The PDF 2025, which gathered development partners and government officials under the theme Bringing Together Progress for All, Services That Matter, Results That Last, also tackled updates on the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028 and the country's transition toward upper middle income status. President Marcos said that while the forum will conclude with a joint declaration, its true value lies in real change, real impact, and real progress.
It must always point toward making life better for our people. Every project, every policy, every program, every peso must move the needle for Filipino families. So I call once again to the Department of Economy, Planning and Development, the DBM, the Department of Budget and Management, Department of Finance, and all concerned government agencies to ensure that our highest priorities, especially education, receive the appropriate funding and support. To DPWH and to the DepEd, speed up the planning and implementation process so we can meet our target of building and rehabilitating thousands of classrooms by 2028. And to DepDev, accelerate the review of PPP proposals for school buildings. No child should be forced to learn in makeshift spaces, and no teacher should be burdened by a system that does not support them. Let us prioritize the delivery of the right kind of education. So we are taking action. To streamline the process, cut bureaucratic delays, accelerate public service, we have revised the Investment Coordination Committee guidelines, the first comprehensive update in a decade. We are also introducing measures to simplify the issuance of special authority, enabling faster mobilization of assistance aligned with national priorities. Be assured that we continue to listen to the concerns and recommendations of our development partners. We are determined to go further. Declarations by themselves do not create results. They do set the direction of what our collective actions will be. Together, let us continue shaping a strong, fair, and future-ready Bagong Pilipinas.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Monday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. hailed Filipino teachers as the nation's heroes, underscoring their vital role in shaping not only the knowledge but also the character and values of the country's youth. addressing tens of thousands of educators at the SM Mall of Asia Arena in Pasay City during the National Teachers' Day culminating program, the President highlighted the profound impact of teachers on students' lives. President Marcos also cited exemplary teachers whose dedication goes beyond the classroom, noting Marivic Villacampa of Cavite, who continues to teach despite battling cancer, and Mary Jane Riodica of Laguna, who empowers students and communities through livelihood and skills training programs. President Marcos emphasized that government support is essential for teachers to fulfill their mission. The President highlighted programs including the tax-free teaching allowance under the Kabalikat sa Pagtuturo Act, fair teaching loads, and reduced paperwork to allow educators to focus on teaching. President Marcos Jr. also announced a 1,000 peso World Teachers' Day incentive for all teachers nationwide. The chief executive noted the reallocation of more than 26 billion pesos from flood control funds to education, which will be used to improve classrooms, child nutrition, teacher compensation, and school technology.
Teachers impart far more than just knowledge. You shape lives. You mold values. And in return, you learn patience, courage, and hope from the very children that you guide. Today, as we celebrate National Teachers' Day for 2025, we honor not just what you have given, but also what you have gained. The wisdom that comes from walking hand in hand with the young people of our country who will one day carry the nation forward. To recognize such service, we launched the Department of Education Heroes to honor teachers, parents, and education partners who have transformed the lives of our students. Yet we know that inspiration must be matched with action. Teachers can only fulfill their calling if the government fully supports their teachers. That is why we signed the Kabalikat sa Pagtuturo Act, granting a tax-free teaching allowance for public school teachers. This year, every teacher has already received 10,000 pesos to help cover classroom needs. We also issued DepEd Order number 005 to ensure fair teaching loads. We cannot impose, we cannot overload our teachers if they are to do the best job possible. And that is why if you exceed 6 hours of classroom instruction in a day, you will be compensated accordingly. And today, on World Teachers' Day, we also provide a 1,000 peso incentive for every public school teacher. A little reminder man lang, kaunting lang paalala that we recognize your efforts and your sacrifices, and they have not gone unrecognized.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. urged local officials on Tuesday to combat corruption and restore public trust in government institutions. During the oath-taking of the League of Cities of the Philippines, or LCP, National Executive Board, and the League of Municipalities of the Philippines, or LMP, National Executive Officers at Malacañang Palace, President Marcos acknowledged public frustration with reports of government irregularities. The chief executive emphasized that his administration remains committed to safeguarding ethics and good governance. Drawing on his own experience as a former governor of Ilocos Norte, President Marcos stressed that he understood the problems of local governance but urged local authorities to remain strong in their commitment to improving Filipinos' lives.
Alam kong hindi madali ang trabaho sa lokal na pamahalaan. Marami ring hamon ang kinakaharap ng ating bansa. Lahat tayo'y dismayado sa mga ulat na katiwalian na nakikita natin sa pamahalaan. Ngunit Malinaw ang ating adhikain. Sa bagong Pilipinas, walang puwang ang korupsyon at ang pandaraya. We must take responsibility to eradicate this abhorrent culture of corruption that has poisoned the public trust and has robbed us of a better future. Let us continue to do the work that changes millions of lives. Be testaments that public service can still be honest and hopeful.
The president has ordered an increased crackdown on corruption in response to discoveries of alleged payoff schemes in multi-billion peso flood control projects involving public officials and private contractors. President Marcos established the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI, to look into alleged irregularities in the implementation of flood control and related projects over the last decade and recommend appropriate charges against those found responsible.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Tuesday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. said the government is still largely made up of honest and hardworking public servants, emphasizing that corruption should not define the country's bureaucracy. In his podcast released Tuesday, President Marcos stated that he chose to reveal the multi-billion peso flood control scam to demonstrate that the corrupt few do not represent the thousands of loyal civil personnel who dutifully fulfill their duties. Despite a few instances of wrongdoing, the president stated that the majority of government employees remain committed to public service.
Have always said there are so many people in government who are very good, who are dedicated, who make sacrifices, who give everything that they can to their service. And one of the reasons I really exposed all of this was because these people are trying so hard. You know, they come into work early in the morning. They leave late. They don't take holidays. They come in on the weekends just so that they can do what they're even beyond, above and beyond their actual job description. Most government workers would rather just be able to do their work and actually serve. That's why they're there. Government service is not easy. We must respect that people are really working very hard and trying their best. You cannot paint everyone in government with the same brush as all of these corrupt operators that you see in government. And yes, there are many, many of them, but you will find they do not filter down. These people are making serious sacrifices, time away from their family, money out of their own pocket, things like that. And they do this constantly, every single day. That is not the face of government. And these corrupt people are not the face of government. All they are is the face of corruption.
President Marcos has already labeled the flood control fund dispute as one of the most flagrant in recent years. The chief executive established the Independent Commission for Infrastructure to look into potential anomalies and directed the reallocation of 255.5 billion pesos in flood control funding to important social and infrastructural services. President Marcos Jr. stressed that responsibility would be pursued without fear or favor, while expressing his continued support for the honest majority who, he added, silently keep the government operating each day.
Dateline Malacañang.
Still on Tuesday, Malacañang announced that Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has appointed Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla as the new ombudsman. In a statement released by the Presidential Communications Office, or PCO, Remulla as the new ombudsman is expected to uphold transparency, strengthen anti-corruption measures, and ensure that justice is administered fairly and efficiently. Remulla succeeded former Ombudsman Samuel Martirez, whose term ended on July 27. Before assuming his new post, Remulla served as the 59th Secretary of the Department of Justice or DOJ since June of 2022. The PCO noted that during Remulla's tenure, the DOJ advanced major reforms to modernize the justice system, decongest prisons, accelerate case resolution, and expand access to legal services. Remulla's appointment comes amid mounting corruption concerns over the implementation of government infrastructure projects, particularly flood control programs, which have drawn scrutiny from both the public and lawmakers. The PCO stressed that the Marcos administration will ramp up its anti-corruption drive. Speaking to Palace reporters, PCO Acting Secretary Dave Gomez said Remulla went through a very stringent selection process. Gomez expressed confidence that Remulla would be very impartial when he assumes the ombudsman post.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Wednesday spearheaded the signing of 8 new petroleum service contracts or PSCs for $207 million to strengthen the country's energy security and reduce its reliance on imported fuels. The contracts, which span exploration sites in Palawan, Sulu, Cagayan, Cebu, and Central Luzon, are the largest batch of PSCs ever given in the Philippines and include the country's first native hydrogen exploration deals. The president said that the Philippines remained heavily dependent on imported oil, noting that 99.68% of petroleum needs in 2024 were imported, with only 0.32% coming from domestic sources. The new PSCs are projected to spur new investments in oil, gas, and hydrogen exploration, thereby creating local jobs and promoting regional growth. Among the contracts won are 2 that will be operated jointly with the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao or BARM, a first since the Bangsamoro Organic Law was passed and will encompass Sulu Sea exploration. President Marcos also lauded the country's first hydrogen exploration contracts in Central Luzon, describing them as a signal of readiness to lead in sustainable innovation.
At pag nagtaas ang presyo ng gasolina o krudo sa pandaigdigang merkado, ang mga ordinaryong Pilipino ang nahihirapan. Sapagkat ang langis ang nagpapagalaw sa ating ekonomiya mula sa mga sasakyang naghahatid ng pagkain hanggang sa mga pabrikang lumilikha ng kabuhayan. These service contracts represent our continued effort to attain greater energy security and therefore economic stability and self-reliance. Through these service contracts that will pave the way for explorations in Palawan, Sulu, Cagayan, Cebu, and Central Luzon, we open new opportunities for our energy sector. This progress would not have been possible without our private partners and investors who are with us today. But with every partnership comes a greater challenge to ensure that progress is achieved with integrity, responsibility, and with respect for our people. Sa pamamagitan ng mga service contract na ito, magkakaroon ng kasiguruhan sa supply at enerhiya sa ating bansa. Sapat na enerhiya para tugunan ang pangangailangan hindi lamang sa ngayon, kundi para na rin para sa kinabukasan ng ating mga anak at ang ating mga susunod na henerasyon.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Wednesday, Malacañang said that the government cannot completely eliminate unprogrammed appropriations or UA since they are important for emergencies and unforeseen expenses. This happened after Akbayan Party List Representative Chel Diokno requested Congress to set the unprogrammed appropriations for 2026 at 0, citing the fund's increasing share of the planned national budget. Presidential Communications Office or PCO Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Undersecretary Attorney Claire Castro clarified that unprogrammed finances may not be distributed without adequate paperwork.
Parang hindi po yata maaari mangyari yan. Marami po nagiging programa ang gobyerno at maaari pong magamit po ito sa pangangailangan kung may kailangan mga emergency cases or situations. But tandaan po natin, hindi naman po ito nagagas na basta-basta. Katulad na sinabi natin kahapon, kahit po ito ay nasa UA or unprogrammed appropriation, ang ibig mo sabihin nito ay hindi po ito agad-agad makukuha kung wala pong sapat na dokumento. Kaya malinaw din po na mababantayan ang anumang pondo na masasabi natin nasa under unprogrammed appropriations. Yan na po ang ginagawa ng Pangulo. Hindi po ba may mga nagrereklamo na hindi daw sila nabibigyan or naririlisan ng mga pondo? Yan po ang ginagawa ng Pangulo dahil po ito ay nasa ilalim po ng conditional implementation. Ibig sabihin po, pinangangalagaan ng Pangulo ang pondo ng bayan.
In a privileged speech before the House of Representatives plenary, Jokno raised concerns about the ballooning UA, which he claimed hid several projects in the shadows of the budget process. UAs are essentially standby funds in the national budget that the government can only access if new revenues or external financing become available during the fiscal year. Unlike regular or programmed appropriations, which have guaranteed funding, UAs act as a financial buffer for unanticipated expenses such as natural disaster, emergencies, or priority projects that require immediate funding. Their release is contingent on tight conditions, including verification from the Department of Finance that sufficient excess revenue or funding sources exist to support the spending.
Dateline Malacañang.
Special Assistant to the President for Investment and Economic Affairs, or SAPIA Secretary Frederick Go on Thursday dismissed as fake news reports that 1.7 trillion pesos in market value was wiped out from the Philippine Stock Exchange due to corruption scandals, as claimed by Securities and Exchange Commission or SEC Chairperson Francis Lim. In a Palace press briefing, Go confirmed as fake news and did not come from them. Go's remarks came a day after Lim, in his speech at the 57th Finex conference, warned that corruption, particularly in the flood control project scandal, now under independent probe, has eroded investor confidence. He clarified that the stock market drop was far smaller than what was claimed.
Unfortunately po, the Securities and Exchange Commission chairman was quoting off a confirmed fake news SOCMED post designed to catch attention and falsely sensationalize. The attributed source confirmed na fake news po ito at hindi galing sa kanila. The fact is, the drop wasn't 12%. You may confirm this with the Philippine Stock Exchange or your favorite stockbroker. Lahat po yan, alam nila. Public knowledge po lahat ng index po natin. And I have personally confirmed this with the PSE president and the top brokers in the stock market. For the period mentioned, which is August 11 to 29, the main PSE drop was only 1.6%. As a matter of fact, it was 1.58%. And the all shares index in our Philippine stock market of 282 companies, the drop was only 1.5%. And in terms of the market cap, which is the clickbait number of that fake SOCMED post, the drop po is only 1.4%. So these are all easily verifiable. You can confirm this later with the PSE, the Philippine Stock Exchange po. Or kahit sinong stockbroker po, alam po nilang lahat to. Public knowledge po lahat ng detalye po na to. And as a matter of fact, your very own colleague from the Inquirer in BizBuzz on September 5, written by Ian Sigaral, himself said that completely fake news po ito and he debunked it already on September 5. So, unfortunately, nangyari po ito pero confirmed po ito by multiple sources na fake news po ito.
Lim called corruption a weapon of mass wealth destruction, saying weak integrity, not weak fundamentals, has driven investors away. Go, however, underscored that while corruption issues are being addressed, claims of massive capital flight are false and misleading, urging the public to rely only on verified data from financial institutions. The country, he said, has not lost any investment due to the corruption issue, noting that pledges continue to come in.
On investment pledges, I don't think we've lost anything. The pledges continue to come in. As a matter of fact, we are now transmitting to the Office of the President the approval of the first beneficiary of the Create More Act, which is an investment from a Korean company of over $1 billion. The FIRB will be transmitting this to the Office of the President this week po. So I don't think we have lost any investment pledges because of this ongoing issue.
Special Assistant to the President for Investment and Economic Affairs, Secretary Frederick Go.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang dismissed renewed impeachment and ouster calls against President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., saying he remains unbothered and focused on his work to uplift the lives of Filipinos. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the chief executive refuses to be sidetracked by baseless accusations and political theatrics, stressing that such noise will not derail the administration's reform and governance agenda. The remark came after Cavite Representative Elpidio Barzaga Jr. accused the president of betrayal of public trust and urged Filipinos to mount a people power movement to remove him from office. Castro, however, emphasized that impeachment proceedings fall squarely within the jurisdiction of Congress. Asked whether Malacañang is paying attention to Barzaga's statements, Castro said the president remains unmindful of such political noise.
Mahirap po kasi magsalita ng walang ebidensya. Madaling magbintang, madaling magsabi kung ano-ano. Kung walang ebidensya, hindi dapat paniwalaan. Sa panahon ngayon na marami pong ginagawa ang Pangulo, hindi po pinapansin ang mga ganyang klaseng usapin. Busy ang Pangulo sa pagtulong sa mga kababayan natin, maraming trabaho para maiangat pa ang Pilipinas, hindi para ibaba ang dignidad ng ating bansa.
The palace has repeatedly underscored that the president's focus remains on driving economic growth, strengthening governance reforms, and ensuring accountability amid ongoing investigations into alleged corruption in public projects.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. assured that the government is assessing the situation on the ground and ensuring public safety following the powerful earthquake that jolted Davao Oriental Province on Friday. In a statement, the chief executive said he has directed the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRMC, the Office of Civil Defense, or OCD, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the Philippine Coast Guard, and all concerned agencies to immediately carry out evacuations in coastal areas, activate emergency communication lines, and coordinate closely with local governments. The president, meanwhile, urged residents in affected regions to stay vigilant and stay away from the shore until authorities declare it safe. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology initially reported that a magnitude 7.6 earthquake rocked Manay Town, Davao Oriental at 9:43 Friday morning. Its magnitude was later revised to 7.5 with a depth of 20 kilometers. The following reported and instrumental intensities were logged. Intensity 5 in Davao City, Intensity 4 in Bislig City, Surigao del Sur, Instrumental Intensity 5 in Hinunangan, Southern Leyte, City of Gingoog, Misamis Oriental, Nabunturan, Davao de Oro, Davao City, Santa Maria, Davao Occidental, Kidapawan City in Cotabato, Alabel and Malungon in Sarangani, City of Coronadal and Tupi in South Cotabato. Instrumental Intensity 4 in Cebu City, Sulat in Eastern Samar, Abuyog, Alangalang, Dulag, and Hilongos in Leyte, Hinunduyan, Silago, and Sogod in Southern Leyte, Kalilangan, Malaybalay, and San Fernando in Bukidnon, Cagayan de Oro City, City of Digos, Magsaysay, and Matanao in Davao del Sur, Emlang and Magpet in Cotabato, Glan, Kiamba, Maitum, and Malapatan in Sarangani, Banga, Palomolok, and Tampakan in South Cotabato, City of General Santos, Columbio, and Palimbang in Sultan Kudarat, City of Cabadbaran, Agusan del Norte, City of Surigao in Surigao del Norte, and City of Bislig in Surigao del Sur. Reported intensity is the traditional way of knowing the intensity based on reports by people who felt the earthquake. Instrumental intensity, on the other hand, is measured using the intensity meter that measures ground acceleration.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service is live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our post as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang in Review. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.